Hello once again, my dearest ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. It's been a while, hasn't it? Been a while since my last video. It seems like I'm saying that every single time now I upload a new video because the space between them is so vast. First of all, I have to apologise for the noise. I just installed a new fan in my PC. I'm one of those PC noobs who doesn't actually rely on water cooling because I don't really understand computers that well. Outside of graphics components and stuff like that, I don't really trust myself to install water cooling stuff and whatnot in there, so I have to keep plenty of fans just to make sure there's plenty of clean, cool air going through the system at all times. So I have to apologise for that background noise. There's not much I can do about it at the moment. It's just I have to kind of keep it where it is just so it gets as much cool air as possible. So, onto the subject of this video. Borderlands, the pre-sequel, was announced. It's got to be about a month ago now, so I'm a bit behind the times. I've known about it since its kind of inception, really, and I'm very excited. There's a lot of people out there who are skeptics and cynics when it comes to Borderlands, saying that basically the second one was just a reskin version of the first Borderlands, but that was fine with a lot of us. A lot of us really did just want the same thing. And as a result, we got a fantastic game. Those of us that really enjoyed Borderlands 1, I haven't met anybody who said that they have actually preferred Borderlands 1 to Borderlands 2 in terms of gameplay mechanics and things they kind of evolved on. There's a nostalgia factor that's always going to come with the first Borderlands, of course. I'm one of those people who thinks that I had more of a pleasant time playing Borderlands 1 because it was more of a unique experience for the time. But Borderlands 2 I think improved in every single way, and yeah, the pre-sequel I'm very excited for, but that's not to say I'm without my scepticisms. From what I've seen so far, it looks interesting, and there's a couple of new mechanics in there which I'm not going to talk about. If you know, there's the Oz tanks and the fact that it's set on the moon and there's a different gravity system and stuff like that, which is fine. I didn't expect them to go all out, so to speak, and just employ a bunch of new mechanics, because that would be taking away inherently what we all really enjoy about Borderlands, and that's the fact that it's very simple, very, I don't want to say no-brainer, but it's very sort of, you can get lost within that world for hours and hours at a time, and that was one of my favourite things about Borderlands 1 and 2. But the things I'm most worried about, I think, so far, in terms of what I've seen, this could all change, of course, from here until its release, but the main thing I don't really like from what I've seen of the gameplay so far is the fact that it's not even reskinned. It's just basically, it looks like it's set in the same engine, which is fine, that's fine. I don't expect a new engine for every single game release, but it's the fact that everything is textured the same. Now, I like kind of things to change from game to game, not necessarily in terms of mechanics, like I've said, but more in terms of aesthetic and colour and stuff, and the aesthetic does look new. It looks fresh and exciting, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. But the fact that they've not really retextured anything kind of makes me feel like I shouldn't be paying full retail price for this on release. They have admitted that it's not going to be as long as Borderlands 2, but it's going to be something like Borderlands 1 plus a third of that length again, in terms of how long the game's going to be. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Length of a game, generally, as long as it stretches over 10 to 15 hours, that's fine with me. And of course, there's the immense replayability factor when it comes to the Borderlands games. You know, there's the farming of the bosses for certain weapons, and it's all very, very cool. But like I say, yeah, the aesthetic changes, sorry, not the aesthetic, but the texture changes, or the lack thereof, does worry me slightly, and I would like to see just general HUD changes and stuff like that. Little tiny tweaks makes me excited for, you know, the new games and stuff like that. So yeah, that's probably the first thing that I'm worried about. Second thing is probably the focus they've kind of shifted towards with multiplayer. Now, I know there's always been a big multiplayer community surrounding Borderlands 2. People love playing with their friends. That's absolutely fine. I'm really, really glad that there's always been that component there, even in the original Borderlands. I'm just going to take a sip of tea because my voice is getting a little bit croaky. There we go, that's sorted it. But yeah, multiplayer component, always been thrilled that it's there. It's fantastic for the people that use it. But me solely, I'm always have been, probably always will be solely a single player gamer. It's just kind of my taste. I like multiplayer games, don't get me wrong. I love the Call of Duty series, as controversial as that may sound. Love multiplayer shooters, MMOs, all types of online games, but Borderlands for me has always been kind of a solo experience. And what they did in Borderlands 2 in terms of the invincible bosses, you know, like Hyperius and bosses like that. I can't really remember the names of them. It's been a while since I farmed them. But yeah, the way they kind of made it so you only really had a chance, or you only really could, in some cases, actually fight the bosses if you're in a 4-player party, and what you would have to do sometimes is trick the game into thinking you had 4 players in game when in fact there was only you alone in order to fight those bosses. And I hope there's not been such a drastic shift towards multiplayer. I don't believe they would do that, Gearbox. Of course, this is a different development team entirely, so things could change, but I think they'll keep it inherently the same as they did with Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2, where it's perfectly playable for people who want to play it on their own in terms of story. Yeah, that's probably my second worry. I actually thought I had a third worry, but in fact I don't think I do. I've been sat here thinking for the last 5 minutes, is there anything else, any other gripes that I might have with what I've seen so far of the game, what I've heard? But no, not really. People are saying that they're starting to milk the franchise slightly now, what with the Telltale sort of tie-in with the Tales from the Borderlands and that sort of gameplay setting, and again, that's something I'm entirely fine with. Love everything Telltale does. If you haven't watched my Walking Dead video, I implore you to go watch that now. It's I do really pour my heart out over that game. It's fantastic. The Walking Dead, that is, as well as the Wolf Among Us. But yeah, I do believe that there is a lot of interesting story there. There's a lot of people out there, critics especially, that believe that Borderlands 2 was lacking in story. But really what it kind of required you to do, and I'm not saying this is necessarily something that advocates what they did, but they sort of made the story, it was there, but only if you were paying attention and only if you really kind of showed an active interest in it. I kind of like to think of it a bit like, I don't want to say like Dark Souls, because it's not really like Dark Souls at all in any way in which you discover the lore for yourself. It's pretty much told to you throughout the game, but if you pay attention and you pick up the little audio logs here and there are some really interesting things, like the fact that there can only be a certain amount of sirens alive in the universe at one time, and that's something they could really expand on and kind of build some new ideas up. But there are those little nuggets of really juicy, choice bits of information and lore within the game that require you to really do pay a lot of attention in terms of that. And I think Telltale will do, if anybody can do it, Telltale can do a really good job of expanding the whole universe as a whole and kind of setting us up for the inevitable Borderlands 3, which I pray to God won't be an MMO. I hope it's just another single player / co-op experience. I really hope it's not a multiplayer, but it does sort of look more and more like that's what it's going to be as we progress. 2K and Gearbox, obviously they have the money and the development experience to kind of develop an MMO, but I think it would kind of throw everybody off. It's a fantastic idea and concept, because essentially, Borderlands takes a lot of the ideas from MMOs, like the number counters and the number. I can't think of the app description. The number counting, let's just say, like tallying up the numbers for each gun and comparing which one's better, taking up natural character progression as you go through the game, switching out equipment every other minute for better stuff, raiding and farming certain bosses. It's really cool, and yeah, there is some. Sorry guys, had a little bit of a burp there, but yeah, like I say, there's the groundwork's there for it's a fantastic idea, a preset for an MMO. But like I say, speaking as a fan, I hope that they don't go that route, because as we've seen recently with a lot of games, going the MMO route does tend to sort of take away from the overall experience. I'm not going to call out Elder Scrolls Online as a classic example of this, because there are a lot of people who really like Elder Scrolls Online, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah, speaking as a fan and my own personal opinion, I wouldn't like to see it turned into an MMO. So yeah guys, that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on the whole thing. Like I say, still really looking forward to the pre-sequel. Borderlands really still is the game I've poured the most hours into. I've spent about 300 hours on that game, at least the most hours I've poured into a single player game. And I feel like I've really got my money out of it, despite some of the dodgy things Gearbox did with the DLC and other, say, more choice releases like Aliens Colonial Marines and things like that. I'm still willing to forgive them for the fact that they've made such a cracking game in Borderlands 2 and its expansions. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up, guys. Hoping to put out a lot more content over the next month. I know I said that last month, but yes, there are a lot of good games. I was fully intending to do a kind of Watch Dogs overview, review, whatever you want to call it, but for whatever reason, Shadowplay and MSI Afterburner just aren't recording for me, and it's hard enough to get that game to run at a decent frame rate at the moment, so kind of introducing any sort of aid that would impede the frame rate anymore seems a bit nonsensical at the moment. So I'm going to wait till they've patched the game and I can play it at a reasonable frame rate before I even try and sort out the recording problems. So yeah, guys, thank you very much for watching. Hope to speak to you soon. Toodaloo.